Something? Hello? Did you hear that? Is that you?
What? Some shadow.
What do you mean? Like somebody down there?
That ain't no tripping.
Are you sure?
I see a shadow.
Okay.
See anything?
What? What?
See that barrel you went through? Let me guess. I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either.
Following new developments in the case of a woman whose body was found inside of an abandoned school in Gary, Indiana. It's a story we first told you about last night at 10. Portage police arrested two boys, a 15 and 16-year-old, and they're looking for a 17-year-old as well. We now know the name of this woman, Adriana Saucedo. She was a 27-year-old from Portage. Police say the teens picked up Saucedo from her home for a marijuana sale. Officers say the teens dumped her body at the abandoned school after she was shot and robbed in the vehicle.
Gary, Indiana is a town that was founded on the steel industry and was at one time the place where basically all the rich people in northwest Indiana wanted to live. But after the mills began to vastly cut back their workforce, some even closing down, it caused Gary to feel a lot less like a town and a lot more like a graveyard. The once beautiful buildings with complex architecture lay decaying, littered throughout the city like bodies left out to rot. And Horace S. Norton Elementary School is no different. This once beautiful school has become a dumping ground for dead bodies and is frankly one of the most haunting places I've ever seen. So, grab a cup of coffee and please join me while we explore the halls and learn the history of Gary, Indiana and Horace S. Norton Elementary School. When I first came up on the building, I realized that the town of Gary had done their best to secure the building from vandals, but there's not a lot of money left in the town, so it didn't take me long to find an open window that allowed easy access into the building. Almost immediately, I was completely stunned at the sheer amount of things that were left behind when the school had closed. Piles of books and boxes, desks, chalkboards, old computers, basically anything that you can think of was just left behind to rot. Walking through the school, I couldn't help but ask myself how the town could have possibly let the building turn into this. If they weren't capable of running the school, at least they could have secured it and sold it and repurposed it as something else. But logically, I guess that was impossible. In copper alone, there was enough value in the building that there was no way they were going to keep people out. They would have needed armed guards patrolling 24/7, and the town just didn't have the money for that. Putting plywood over the windows and locking the doors was basically just the town pretending that they were doing something to protect the building. The building was much larger than it looked from the road, and it ended up taking hours to explore each and every room in its entirety. I'd originally planned on going through all the lockers and boxes and detailing exactly what was left behind, but the sheer volume of things in the building made that basically impossible. Vandals had broken in over the years, but for the most part the building was completely untouched. The only real damage to the building was almost certainly not done by kids. Entire sections of the upstairs walls had been removed, and large sections of the floor were missing, and what I'm assuming was adults who had actually come to steal copper lines that had been run throughout the building. I did my best to look into Horace S. Norton Elementary. There really isn't a ton out there about the history of the school. From what I have been able to find, the classes were from kindergarten to 6th grade. It had nearly 500 students before closing, and actually had one of Indiana's better teacher-to-student ratios. However, in 2017, the state of Indiana took control over all of the schools in Gary, Indiana, and within years had closed nearly all of them. Where those students are going to school now is probably a topic best saved for another video, but in short, closing all the schools in a town doesn't exactly encourage growth and development. At some point since it's been closed, someone had broken in and set fire to a large section of the building just before the gymnasium, but the building is made mostly out of brick and cinder blocks, and even though the fire did a lot of damage, it didn't manage to spread to the rest of the school. From my understanding, numerous dead bodies have been hidden in this school over the years, and I couldn't help but wonder if that fire had been set in an attempt to destroy evidence in one of those cases. Parts of the building that I'm filming are difficult to see, and even though I'm using a high-powered flashlight, the rooms like the gymnasium and the cafeteria were just so large that light didn't have a close enough place to fall and reference how big those rooms really were. Later on, as I traveled through the building, I heard what I thought were footsteps, and I kind of brushed it off as my mind playing tricks on me, and just because the building was intimidating looking, it must have been in my head. However, when we were on the second floor, I became convinced I'd heard someone walking. It seemed like they were intentionally trying to stay away from me, and I truly believe it was almost certainly a homeless person. And before I left the building, I actually found a couch in one of the main floor rooms that had been drug in from the outside of the building. I didn't mess with it, and I left that room, but I'm pretty sure that's where they were sleeping, and in the end, they never messed with me, so I just continued filming. You could tell from the outside of the building that even though it was decaying, that at one time this place had been absolutely beautiful. The architecture, the attention to detail, this place had cost a lot of money to build, which the town absolutely had at one time. Gary, Indiana was actually named after the lawyer Albert Henry Gary, who was actually the founding chairman of the United States Steel Corporation, U.S. Steel, which was established in the city in 1906 as a company town for its steel mills. However, in the 1970s, when manufacturing began to decline, the town lost 61% of its population. Gary isn't famous for its steel mills anymore, but rather for its extreme urban decay and violence. It's difficult to really do it justice in a video just how bad things really are in that town, because a video is never going to capture the feeling of impending danger that town almost instantly evokes the moment you step inside of it. Gary also happens to be the birthplace of Michael Jackson, and signs have been placed along the highway in an attempt to get tourists to drive past his home and to bring in outside commerce. And while most people know that it's a bad idea to leave the highway when you're passing through Gary, there still are some people out there who aren't aware and they actually pull off to see his house. You can always tell someone is a tourist when they're driving through the town, doors locked, windows up, faces looking directly forward, trying not to make eye contact with anyone. It would be comical if the story of the town wasn't so sad. On October 4th, 1919, a riot broke out on Broadway, which is the main north-to-south street that runs through downtown Gary. The fighting actually began between steelworkers and strikebreakers who had been brought in by the steel mills from the outside. Things actually got so bad that Indiana's governor actually had to declare martial law, and they sent in 4,000 federal troops under the command of a major general just to restore order. When companies get as much power as the steel mills in Gary had at the time, especially back then, they almost always abuse it, and intentionally causing riots with your striking workers should have been a pretty big sign that bad things were coming for the town. In spite of all of that, the town actually managed to make it all the way to the 1960s before cost-cutting measures by the mills began to have a serious impact on the town. U.S. Steel, who had once employed over 30,000 workers, cut their workforce back to just 6,000. Neighboring steel mills followed the trend, and over a relatively short period of time, almost everyone found themselves unemployed. Then, in July of 1968, riots broke out in Gary for a second time, and over 3,000 National Guard members were actually sent in to restore order to the city. Curfews were enforced, a ban was placed on gasoline and liquor sales in an attempt to calm things down. In the end, 110 people were arrested, and at least 3 stores were set on fire, and 15 fire bombings were reported. I tried to look more into whose bodies were actually left in the building, and I only managed to find the name Adrina Sediso, who was a young woman who was killed over a small amount of marijuana so the thieves could steal her car. One article actually mentioned that the teens had left her body in the gymnasium. Now, I don't know how they would have known that, but that's what they said in the article. However, in the articles that were written about her murder, the fact that other bodies had been discovered in the school was also brought up. I didn't actually know the extent of how bad this was, or I would have been a lot more careful when I was going to this place. But honestly, it wouldn't have stopped me. Abandoned buildings in Gary are notorious for people using them to hide bodies. The serial killer Darren Dion Van used numerous abandoned homes in the city to hide his victims. He killed at least 7 women that they know of, whose bodies were eventually only found when he told police where their locations were. I mean, really think about that. Dead bodies were littered all over the town in vacant buildings, and somehow no one even noticed. As I mentioned earlier in the video, that while we were on the 2nd floor, we actually started to hear noises that I truly believe were coming from a person. For the most part, you can't really hear what we were hearing in the video. It was extremely cold. We had been in this building at this point for well over an hour trying to navigate through junk that was littered everywhere. I was breathing heavily, so I almost didn't include this section as a result. But I do increase the audio during the moments we do hear something, but it's mostly just so you can hear our reactions.
Did you hear that? Is that you?
What?
I heard a beeping noise. You mean like somebody down there?
That road trip?
Are you sure?
I see a shadow.
Okay. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Not long before we left, my friend noticed a stuffed bear that someone had placed on top of a desk that we didn't notice when we passed it the first time. And it's entirely possible we just didn't notice it, but that does seem like the type of thing that I would have absolutely tried to get film of. So, make of it what you will. It might have been someone messing with us trying to scare us, or we just didn't notice it the first time.
What? What?
See the bear we went through? I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either.
After a while, the building stopped feeling intimidating to me and just started to feel sad. This place was once a safe haven for kids. So much thought and care had gone into its construction, and towards the end, this school might have been the only place many of its students knew they were actually going to be able to get a meal. It just felt like a tomb, which I guess is kind of accurate given all the bodies that had been dumped inside of it. It felt dead inside, like a reminder that no matter how good things might be, all of that can change and go away, that nothing lasts forever, even if it feels like it might. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments section. I usually cover true crime on this channel, and I'm sure this video was quite a bit different than my subscribers were expecting, so I'm really interested to know what my subscribers feel about this video. This channel does offer channel memberships where I post for my members weekly, where I often go explore abandoned buildings, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can find a link to join my channel in the description of this video. Or, if you're so inclined and you want to support this channel, you can always leave a tip in the tip jar by clicking on the thanks button below. But honestly, just hitting the thumbs up goes a long way to helping YouTube promote videos like this one. So I guess with that being said, thank you so much for watching.